The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey, the Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency, but they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families, and they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Foley. Thank you very much for joining us today. Real fast before we get started, thanks to Techtown Detroit and Samaritas for their sponsorship of this program each and every week. I appreciate it very, very much. We all do, as a matter of fact.
We all do.
And my guest this week, once again, Nancy Derringer is here. Say hello.
In the bimbo chair.
That's
yes.
what she likes to call it. Right. Alan Langle, of course, editor and co-founder of Deadline Detroit, is back with us again this week.
Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And, of course, Coleman Young II back with us, former state legislator, former candidate for both Congress and mayor here in the city of Detroit, and the host of the newest podcast on Deadline Detroit, 30 Black with Coleman Young. Welcome.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And nice to have your voice with us, too, as well.
Yes.
So we're going to have a lot of fun. Coming up a little bit later on in the show, our new feature, Schmuck of the Week. The Donald J. Trump Schmuck of the Week Award, because it is named after him, because otherwise we'd never have anybody else that would be in contention. But we'll get started. Wow. Okay, Michigan's primaries coming up on Tuesday.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, the field looks a lot different than it did this time last week. We were maybe expecting at least 4 or 5 candidates maybe to still be in the race.
Right.
Joe Biden really shook things up with a
Historic.
strong performance, winning a bunch of states that the Democrats may have a tough time carrying in the fall, but it still was pretty remarkable to see, Coleman.
He won states that he didn't even have organizations in. That is
Wow.
And he hadn't-
amazing.
And spent a dime.
I think it's the fact that you had African-American voters who coalesced behind him in South Carolina. I also think it's the fact that you had the moderate wing of the party really coalesce when Buttigieg dropped out and then when Klobuchar dropped out. So a lot of that energy was building towards Biden. And I really thought it was brilliant what they did in Texas. And with Beto O'Rourke coming out, I think that built even more energy and enthusiasm. And you had the progressive wing of the party that was divided between Bernie and Warren, who had a really rough night.
Yeah.
And a really brilliant, talented, politician and leader. And I think it's still divided. In terms because she decided she hasn't come out and support it yet. And I think that's because of a lot of the things that the Bernie bros were doing to her personally. And so I think
Right.
she is a question between does she support her ideology, which is Bernie, or the individuality, which is Biden. Because I think she likes Biden more than she likes Bernie personally, but I think she lines it.
I think that stuff matters.
I do too.
Right. I think she was kind of hinting. I mean, she was talking. Was it yesterday? Saying how angry she was that Bernie didn't do more to hold back his people. That his people were attacking people online and stuff, and being rude and harsh. And I mean, look, Biden could really get the Bernie bros without Bernie by taking her in as the VP, and I think.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Well, the most hardcore Bernie bros are, if it's not Bernie, I'm not voting.
Right.
So
Well,
that's-
I was
very
talking. I was
true.
talking to a millennial. I think it was a couple weeks ago. I was at some dinner in the suburbs, and 27 years old, a scientist, and he was saying that it's either Bernie or no one. And he says, I don't care if it's Trump again. He goes, let the system burn down to the ground and we'll rebuild it. But
Wow.
the way it is right now, he says.
What a nihilist.
Yeah, well.
Really?
And that's,
Nice Mormon.
yeah. And, his brother, I was at somebody's house, it was their sons, and the brother was a little bit more moderate and said, hey, whoever, is a Democratic candidate, but there are certainly the Bernie bros who say, but I think there's some who would see Elizabeth Warren as palatable.
palatable.
Some,
but,
yeah.
I mean,
I think he's going to nominate Stacey Abrams, quite frankly.
I've been hearing a little bit of that
that's
too.
Good bet. That's a good bet.
If
I'd put
if
that
he gets
at,
it, I mean, he's still got some work to do. Because
5 to
remember,
1.
Bernie did win Michigan last time around.
Yeah.
Which shocked a whole lot of people. I don't think he's going to be able to repeat that performance this time around. But look, polls have been wrong before. But Bernie's got some work to do. He's got a rally here tonight. He's bringing Cornel West in with him today, which is interesting. He's got Mary Sheffield, Rashida Tlaib out there, who are going to be there tonight. So he's got some people around him, but he has been lacking in support from minority voters. They just don't seem to like him. No. They didn't like him 4 years ago. They don't like him now. They really like Joe Biden, and I don't know if it's just the connection to Barack Obama.
I think it's a lot of it.
But Biden is solidifying that chunk of the electorate, which makes up a very, very large chunk of the Democratic base.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to say he actually left, real quickly, Bernie actually left a rally, I think it was in Mississippi, to come to Michigan. He actually canceled the rally to come out here to Michigan. So I think what you said is really correct in terms of he's seeing the vulnerability here. I personally think that with Biden, it's the fact that he was the VP for 8 years with Barack Obama, but I also think it's his personal connections that he made during that time with the African American community. I also think there seems to be kind of a rigidity, with Bernie Sanders and African American voters. I think the way he just dismissed reparations by saying we could do more for black people and cut them a check. I think the fact that he compared white voters in Vermont to Africans living under apartheid, that he compared he compared white workers that got their jobs outsourced in Vermont to slaves in the United States, as their treatment being the same way, and showed empathy for George Wallace. I think those things kind of don't really appeal to black people if you don't have a good recovery, if you're not really good at kind of schmoozing. And I don't think he's there yet. It could change. You never know, but I just don't see it right now.
Joe's a very personable guy. Bernie is very, very didactic. He speaks very.
He sounds like he's
in declarative sentences.
He sounds like he's in front of the Politburo, giving like one of those like Fidel Castro levels.
Nice choice.
Well, no, seriously. I also, one other factor that has not been mentioned here is I think the magnitude of the tidal of the wave that broke Biden's way on Tuesday, I think indicates that a lot of people were saying, okay, Buttigieg is out, Klobuchar's out, Warren's on life support. It's like, who can win? And that's who they just said, I may not like Joe Biden.
That's the bottom line.
It's about Trump. Winning. It would not be the first time, even if he was just an average mediocre president. We've had quite a few mediocre average presidents. I mean,
that's very true. You only have a few really good ones. The rest of them just kind of.
The difference, though, is, you can see it in my household. I have a 23-year-old who is like your millennial at the dinner party. She's like, she not only thinks that she's not going to not vote for Biden, but she said she believes that only Bernie can beat Trump. I mean, she really believes that Biden will lose. It'll be 2016 all over again. And my husband, who is exactly the opposite, who's like, Sanders is going to get up there with his anti-charisma and his Politburo speaking style and turn people off. And, at least Biden has some avuncularity to him.
Biden has a warmth that Bernie is sort of like a prickly,
that's what avuncularity is.
Yes, he's a prickly kind of cactus.
Not to diss that, but I mean, Biden's also got a couple of issues that are coming to the fore, and there are going to be a lot of people looking at whether or not he is all there. I hate to say it, but he's been making some strange gaffes in the last few weeks.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Corn Pop.
Forgetting the names of
Corn Pop was a tough dude.
President Obama. Forgetting President Obama's name. Also sitting there saying, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All that stuff.
I'm sorry. Are not going to. He could walk out there in a dress, okay, and sit down.
I'm still going to vote for him over Trump.
That's not what I'm saying.
And we love the
let me
LGBT
finish the
community.
sentence. He is still more cogent than the President of the United States. I mean, come on.
I love the victory speech, which we included in the Zip, a little video where he gets up there and says, Super Tuesday, and they call it Super Tuesday because it's whatever. And then he goes, and he goes, his wife, and nobody knew who the other woman was next to him.
His little sister.
His little sister, and he goes, hey, I just want to say, my little sister, and he's like this, and it's his wife, and his wife's going, No. We don't believe in incest.
To be sure, they were standing kind of at his 4 o'clock, right? You know,
Yeah.
so they weren't like. I mean, it was just
Right.
kind of like, oh, you switch places,
Right.
kind of thing. Sorry.
And I think it's overwhelming. Look, these guys, you know, these candidates are at sometimes 3-4 cities and 3-4 states in a day.
Hello, Cleveland. No, I get it. You
It's
know,
got to be,
it's-
and then waking up half the time. I mean, we've all done this. We've been on the road,
Right.
you know, for work or something, and it's like,
What
you know,
city am I in?
Yeah, what
What's my
city am
name?
I in?
But see, listen. Here's the attack that's going to be taken against what he's saying, and this is Donald Trump this morning on Twitter, who says, "I will protect your Social Security and Medicare just as I have for the past 3 years. Sleepy Joe Biden will destroy both in very short order, and he won't even know he's doing it."
See, and I'm sorry. This is like
This is what they're going to go after him for. They're going to try to paint him as being senile.
And all you have to do is post like any 15-second clip of him saying tremendous
Right,
all over, you know,
right.
his catchphrases all over.
I mean,
again.
it's the-
We're going to take a very strong look at that. We're going to be looking very strongly at that. I mean, this guy speaks in word salad, so don't
Right.
Yeah.
talk to me
this,
about
This the
how
kettle calling the pot black here.
Exactly.
Literally.
What part of our conversations about this president make you think that I'm somehow rooting for him?
No, I don't
You
think
clearly
you
have
are.
not been listening for the last 52 episodes or whatever we're on to this now. No, Trump obviously says something every single day, multiple times every single day, that make me just scratch my head and wonder how we got to this awful place.
You know what I do, and I say this with some sincerity. I do worry about what happens to the media when Trump is gone. The Times, the Times, the Washington Post. I mean, their readership has just gone up. Particularly, you know, their subscriptions have gone up quite a bit, and I think it's a lot to do with Trump. I think people are so freaked out, and they want to keep track, and they're waiting for that little news alert that'll say something like Trump did something, and it's he brings people back to the sites all day long.
Right.
And I think when that's gone, I mean, the country's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot less angst, and I think people will be calmer. And I do wonder what the psychological damage for those who have been against Trump, just the psychological damage of seeing what's happened to our country.
What is the stress hormone?
Cortisol.
Cortisol. It's like I feel like I am
Did
basically
you work at a
like,
GNC or something?
I feel like I have been mainlining cortisol for 3 years now. And it's like it's why my hair went gray.
I mean,
you know,
Stephen
so-
Colbert. Look, Stephen Colbert really got, his show was going down the tubes, and then he hooked on to something in America, the angst in America and the anger in America, and he in his dialogues every single night. And the same thing with Seth Meyers. Their dialogues have been great.
Good point.
And great
Can
humor.
we ever talk about why can't you hear a lot about conservatives yelling about people like Stephen Colbert and Seth Meyers and all the actors at the Oscars and everything else. It's like, why can't Republicans put up any decent show like
Well, they
entertainment?
tried.
They do try,
Remember
and
they
they
had that
always
Fox News
fail.
11 o'clock at night show on Fox News for a while that was
They're
like
in
Greg
cable.
Gutfeld or something like that.
Yeah.
It was awful.
They're capable of decent entertainment.
And it was terrible.
It
They're
has to be.
just
it's
crazy.
like,
It's
wild.
maybe they ought to be
Well, they're
asking.
There's a reason
Well-
they're still dragging Dennis Miller out there all these years later because he's the only comedian that
There's
does
Dean
anything.
Cain.
There's a reason
And Adam
that
Carolla.
in 2001 when I was at the Washington Post, we had people at every corner on both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, and I remember watching Bush the inauguration as they were going down Pennsylvania Avenue, and they had the celebrity little float, and they had like Ricky Schroeder, they had Drew
Who's
Carey,
Rick Schroeder now, by the
Kelsey Grammer, and there was there was some woman, I can't remember who, but they had 4 or 5 people. If the Democrats
Yeah.
had been in there, they would have needed
Yeah,
2
Beyonce,
buses.
George Clooney.
2 buses.
It's George Clooney's section of the parade.
All right, well, let's switch for a little bit because any predictions for Michigan? Anybody want to make predictions about who's going to win the primary here?
I think Biden's going to win the primary here.
I think Biden might pull it off as well.
I think Biden will too. I mean, it's interesting. Biden's organization has been so poor. His fundraising has been so poor. But now, I think with the help of Bloomberg, with Steyer, there's going to be real money coming in and real organization coming in.
And Coleman, I got to ask you this. I mean, there's a whole lot of people that really like the fact that Mike Bloomberg came to town with his multiple millions of dollars. A lot of political operatives in the state have been getting paid. Apparently, they're going to continue getting paid
Through
because
November.
he announced that Michigan is one of the states he's going to keep spending in through November. So that's got to be good for some folks
Yes.
you know out
Oh,
there.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
right.
I'm sure. I don't want to talk too much about what's going on, but I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure.
I think the story of the primary is not going to be who wins. It's going to be the counting of the votes, and because this is going to be the first heavy turnout election.
No reason absentee.
No reason absentee. While I was voting,
And same-day registration.
yeah,
Same-day voting.
yeah, exactly. While I was voting yesterday, two couples came in behind me to spoil their ballots because they had voted for somebody who had dropped out, probably. Who knows?
Right.
And that was, and that's a whole nother procedure. So I mean, it's going to be. We have to figure out how to do this. So
We'll get there. All right. Hey, the stock market down. Let's see. What is it down right now? It is down 537 points as of right now. Today, coronavirus fears roiling the markets, causing all sorts of problems all across the country. We are finding out just how woefully underprepared we are for a pandemic.
it's not that we're underprepared.
We don't have the materials
Yeah,
necessary
we
to
don't
test
have the
people.
procedure. You're absolutely right. We don't have. I mean, if you want to talk about masks and testing kits and all the other stuff, what I find really interesting about this is what a delicate organization or organism an economy is.
Oh, yeah.
And it's people going to the restaurant. It's people,
Go to movies.
going to the
Psychology,
movies.
people
It's like.
flying somewhere.
Well, I
Right.
got
I
an
mean, you
email.
see why
rough.
economists like
got an
half
email
of
this
it is
morning.
it's like witchcraft.
I got an email this morning suggesting that my son's study abroad program in the fall might be impacted by this. He might not be able to go. I just got the email this morning suggesting, this is what's going to happen. Everything is going to be.
Can I one up you?
Disgusting.
Can I one
Please.
up you on coolness for that
I
one?
didn't say that was cool. I just,
Okay, but well, your son's going to study abroad. My daughter,
he's smart. He's a smart kid.
my daughter is playing South by Southwest.
Oh, wow. That is cool.
And they're
A couple
very
people just pulled out.
and they're very worried about
Ozzy Osbourne being one of them who pulled out of South by Southwest, but he also is probably at the top of the risk category.
Yeah, I
with
was just
something
going to
like
say,
this.
if
it's
I were
funny.
if I had Ozzy Osbourne's lungs, I don't think I would want to be.
Exactly.
But anyway, they're concerned about whether they'll get a chance to play.
It's
So.
funny, the insurance agent who we use has been trying to sell me an annuity for a fixed rate annuity, and I keep putting off on doing anything with it. And he keeps telling me, the market's going to correct, And finally he calls, see, I told you the market was going to correct. And I'm like, yeah, it didn't correct as you had predicted.
Right.
but
No,
They always correct. I mean, and then
Right.
you hope that when
Right.
this thing passes.
I mean, this is
that
a
it will-
freak. This is a freak thing that is,
Right.
really altering the market. But the market's been, since Trump has been in.
Well,
and
Wash
before
your
that,
hands.
really.
But
Yeah,
this,
wash your hands.
This
No,
is the
true.
kind of thing that shows again how delicate the economy
Right.
is, and and it also proves just how global the economy is.
Very
There is
much
no
so.
such thing as isolationism anymore.
No.
It's a point I tried to make the other day. This "Make America Great Again" or "We can do this on our own." It's just not realistic.
No.
And it's not real. And I think we're seeing the limits of that with this and the response to it thus far. But you look at what's happening with the market. People are so freaked out about this. I'm going to go to my schmuck of the week right now.
Okay.
Just
okay.
because
Ding, ding,
it's
we should
Yeah,
have
we have some music.
Schmuck of the week alert.
of the week.
My schmuck of the week is
Ding,
Rick
ding.
Santelli. He's a host on CNBC. Remember, one of the guys who is credited with creating the Tea Party when he did this rant against Obama on CNBC as the housing crisis was going on.
Right.
But Rick Santelli yesterday went on television and basically said we'd be better off if we just gave everyone coronavirus. That way the economy could correct more quickly because we get through it in like a month.
Right.
Not even talking about the fact that, okay, say the death rate is only the 1% President Trump says as opposed to the 3.4 that the World Health Organization suggests it might be. If you go 3,400, you're talking, like 11 million people that
Yeah,
could potentially
sure.
die if everybody were to get this.
But isn't that a
but the lack
reasonable
of
price to
humanity,
pay
the
for-
lack of humanity in that statement, just saying that the markets are more
Right,
important than
the
human
human
lives,
lives.
is
Yeah.
just disgusting. And Santelli did apologize for it today, said, hey, I was an idiot last night. But the thought crossed his
He
mind.
was probably an idiot the day before.
Why
too,
is
Exactly.
Larry? Why is Larry Kudlow on Pence's task force? If this isn't the way this administration looks at this, they see this. If the market keeps falling, Trump is concerned that he's not going to that it's going to hurt him in November. Blah blah blah. We
Look,
all know this
right.
story.
I mean, his
Right.
grace has been is the stock market is done
Right.
well, and people's 401ks, which not everybody in the country has a 401k. I can't
Exactly.
remember what percentage it is,
Some
but
people still
it's-
have pensions.
right,
Some people have none.
right, yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that the one problem that I see with all of this is that Rick Santelli speaks his mind, and that seems to be what is the top of mind fear of most of the people in power right now, is that if the market doesn't recover politically, they're screwed, not the public health.
Right.
This is something we discussed last week with Alex Azar, former head of Eli Lilly, who now is in charge of Health and Human Services, suggesting that, well, we can't guarantee that this vaccine is going to be affordable. They refused to answer a question at a press conference yesterday whether or not uninsured people would qualify to get the vaccine if it came through. They wouldn't even answer the question as to whether or not uninsured people would get the vaccine.
Wow.
There's
We're talking
real
about like
issue.
a public epidemic here. We're talking about like a health crisis, and they're not going to even guarantee that the
And the
vaccine be affordable.
argument.
just say yes.
The argument,
We'll figure out a way to do it.
Well,
all
you
you're
know
doing
what?
is just getting more people to want to vote for Bernie after
Right.
stuff like
Well,
this.
exactly.
Exactly.
The argument for folks like Trump and his ilk is not to say, because they have no sympathy for poor people, but they do have. If you say, hey, if we don't immunize them, then they can spread it to the people who can afford it. I mean, you have to really go into economics and really throw it back at them because they don't care about
ROI.
the disenfranchised.
I don't care what gated community you live in. You cannot avoid this, unless you lock yourself up in your house like Howard Hughes. You are going to come in contact with people, and it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, how good your doctors are.
Yep.
You could be susceptible to this.
I was in
discriminate.
I was
Exactly.
saying this morning, I'm in the apartment building, and on my floor, and we're waiting for the elevator, and this woman is on the phone going, yeah, I feel terrible. I feel really achy, and I'm just going to go in for a little bit today to work, and then I'm coming back home, and I'm like thinking, maybe I should wait.
Well, that seems like a good segue into the insane interview that the president gave with Sean Hannity night before last.
Wow. I was going to ask you about that because you and I were talking about this yesterday morning.
That really, I have tried to approach the Trump era with a certain, shall we say, ironic distance. I mean, I try.
It's impossible.
I get upset, but I try to always keep a certain sardonic tone to my anger. That interview was so irresponsible on so many levels that it really I was actually pissed off, and I mean, I was angry, and
You're not alone.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, that was, for him to say his hunch is that the death rate isn't going to be so bad and blah blah blah, and some people
it's
are
closer to
getting
1% than 3%.
Right, exactly. But and the thing is, a lot of people are going to get this, and they are going to recover. The last I heard, which was last week, and this information may be outdated by now, but is about 80% of the people who get this will recover at home like they have a bad flu. 20% will need to be hospitalized, and about 1 to 3% will die. Now, you think, oh, well, 80%, that's pretty good odds. I take care of myself, I'm good. It's like, wait until it's your grandmother or your parent or your kid who has, has asthma or something.
Exactly.
Somebody who has like immunocompromised. I mean, they're people too.
Right. That's the thing, is that we're treating it as like, don't worry, you don't have anything to worry about if you're young and you're healthy. And it's like, what about the senior citizens? What about people who aren't healthy, who have some type of,
He is the mayor in
preconditions?
Jaws. He
exactly.
really is.
The
He's the
mayor
mayor
in
in Jaws. Come on in.
Don't put those signs on the beach. All right, we got a few minutes left here. I want to get to a couple other things. State Senator Pete Lucido, who I believe you know.
I do.
Was accused, of course, of sexual harassment by 3 women, Capitol reporters and a couple of staffers. Yeah. An investigation was completed yesterday. They put out a response that said the internal investigation found that he engaged in what they called inappropriate workplace behavior, but they said they didn't have any definitive evidence, but there was nothing that they found out that said that the people that came forward were not credible.
Right.
Pete Lucido comes out yesterday and says, I have maintained that I did not sexually harass anyone. And so now saying, after their comprehensive and impartial investigation, they determined that the allegations made against me could not be unequivocally substantiated.
I did not have sex with that woman.
Until we can dust a woman's butt for fingerprints, it's going to have to stay that way.
That's exactly
And
right.
The other thing is,
man.
I generally keep my mouth shut. I generally keep my mouth shut when it comes to state issues on this show, but I will tip my hat to getting the phrase upper butt into, and by I mean UPPER.
Yes, understand.
Upper butt. It's not confused with Upper Peninsula.
She was
Yes,
touched.
yeah.
She was touched on her lower back / upper butt. So I'm
Well,
Can I just say,
He lost a committee seat, by the way.
first of all, let me just say, the fact that these women had to go through this, I think is just unconscionable. And I think it's just unfortunate and it's disgusting. There is nothing a woman could do to ever deserve this, period. Regardless of what you think or what you might think is happening, it's wrong. But this is not, it's just about, does the punishment fit the crime or fit the charge? It just doesn't. If you were going to do something like this, why do this in the first place? I just feel like this makes a mockery of the whole process. Look, I used to serve with a guy by the name of Dave Agema. Okay, Dave Agema during a budget crisis. Okay, during the shutdown, we had marathon sessions back in the day.
Right.
I was on the floor during that time. He decides to leave to go hunt sheep in Russia, in some mountain somewhere, some mountaintop in Russia. Only time you could do it. Decides to leave his
Remember
responsibilities.
when these guys thought Russia was the enemy?
Right,
Now,
right.
now
He
it's like
left
great
to go
salmon
hunt up
fishing.
there and play Rambo up there, okay? With the metal tip explosive spear and everything, all right? He goes up there, he comes back, and they decide to take him off some committees and take those parking spots away from him. It's almost literally the same punishment for Dave Agema hunting an animal than it is for Pete Lucido inappropriately touching a woman.
Yeah,
Dave Agema seems like
God,
the type of
are
dude
you
that would actually,
serious
at least
right now?
for a couple of seconds, consider whether or not to get in the lottery or you're allowed to
What
hunt
is
a
going
human
on in the
somewhere.
institution I used to serve at
I
here?
have a question. Did he have a reputation for that?
No,
Were there
not to
stories? You had
me.
never-
I kind of
you
didn't really pay attention to
hang
people and
out-
stuff like that.
hang
But
out with
from my
Lucido.
understanding with him and talking with him, he never had that reputation. So to see that, I was now he was always kind of aggressive and out there and looked like he was going to externally combust. When he talked about politics, but I never thought he would be that type of person.
Well, Pete didn't apologize. Chris Matthews at least apologized.
Right.
But, when we watched that compilation video the other day of
yes.
Chris Matthews and all the
Right.
times he said inappropriate things to
Right.
women on the show.
Yeah.
You're like, wow. And I never watched
Well,
it that
why-
often, but you're like, man, this
Yeah.
must have happened a lot more than I realized.
Right. But you know what struck me about that is that MSNBC or NBC was suddenly like, oh my God, this is horrible. They were seeing it on the air.
it was on
How
the
did
air.
that happen
Repeat
for
it.
all that
Right.
time? And then suddenly they go, whoa, we don't want anything to do with this. While, you'd think they would say after a show, hey, Chris.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so
not
cringing.
cool.
Or my
Backlash.
my shoulders are still up around my earlobes from cringing over what you just
Right.
said. So
And so how did that happen? That
Consequence.
suddenly it was
He was-
horrible when
That's
it was
because-
right in front of their.
because he was a successful show host for them, and
But here's the thing. There's a great piece I read the other day that was great. Just said that he also just doesn't do the work. That's part of the reason he was gone too, is that he was ill prepared. He'd just get on the air and wing it every day without doing any research and get facts wrong all the time. Step on his guests. Don't ask them a question, then start answering it for them before they even start. And so a lot of people were just saying, this is not acceptable.
and that's my
This was just
Chris
the reason
Matthews
they finally got to get rid of him.
is my schmuck of the week this week, and I am the second oldest person at this table, and I remember when men
Look
simply
good. You don't mind me saying so.
Wait a minute.
I would have never guessed. I'm just saying. Wow. Okay.
the second oldest person at this table, and I remember when men simply behaved that way, and that you just kind of laughed it off, and it was like blah blah blah, or sometimes you had to actually physically remove their hands from you. But the point was, he is a typical. And he's 70 something, right?
74 or
He
something
kind of
like that.
got he's a
could run for
product of
president.
that era. He's a product of that era who simply the world changed and he didn't, right?
Right.
He just
Right.
he's like those old guys that still call black people
as-
Negroes.
Right.
As
As the third
But-
oldest person at the table, I would like. I would like. I'm just surprised that NBC at some point didn't say, "Hey, Chris,
Right.
that's not cool anymore. You can't do that."
Right.
Talking about these women's
Well-
appearance on your show.
Yeah, I mean, what does that say
And in the
usually
green
when
room,
a
that's the
guy
creepy
when a
stuff.
guy is doing that? It's a somewhat of a way of coming on.
Yes, it
to,
is.
to a woman saying, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful." If there's any chance, it's
Right.
it's putting out the.
Yeah, I'm feeling a rush of blood. Anyway, here, but no, this is the other thing.
That's not something I want to think
I
about.
know
Thank
exactly.
you.
This is the other thing. This is the other thing that I want to mention though about him. What he did, like I said, he kind of got the world changed and he didn't. But that exchange with Elizabeth Warren where he was talking about Bloomberg, and he was saying, do you believe this woman who, this was a woman who claimed that Bloomberg told her to have an abortion when she came. She worked for him and came.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you believe her? And why would he lie? Why do you think Bloomberg would lie? I mean, he just kept pressing her on this idea that how can you think that this Mike Bloomberg would lie
How can a
about
politician
that?
lie?
Talk
It
about
never
Warren.
happens.
Yeah, to Warren, and Warren finally is like, I believe her, which that seems to indicate
Which real quick segue.
and that's
Just
the problem
quick-
with him.
Go ahead,
It's
go.
It's
We're
not
running
just
out of
the,
time.
We
it's
got
not
as
just
much
the-
time as we want.
It's
Enjoy.
not the flirting. It's the condescension.
It's
Yes.
which just leads me to, it's interesting that I think every Democratic candidate, and it's different from the Republican debates, every candidate who went after somebody, they got a little, like Kamala Harris went after Joe Biden, got a little bump and then went down. Castro got maybe a little bump and went down. And the same Elizabeth Warren, who was attacking Bloomberg, got a little bump because people said, wow. And then she went down. And I think the Republicans or the Democrats have a little higher expectations of discussion as opposed to the Trump. Trump basically just belittled every person on stage, and he got elected for being an asshole.
You have to keep
basically
in
correct.
mind, though, that these debates are not policy discussions. They're entertainment events for political junkies, and that they are set up to create those kinds of moments.
Yeah.
You know,
But-
it's like, what do you think of this? Well, what do you think of what he just
But
said?
For
You
people
know?
like me who love that type of
It's a
stuff.
Exactly.
losing strategy. It's a short-term gain, and it's a long-term loss, I think.
Well, I
But
think you're right too.
Do you think, though, the thing about Warren, though, I think is just the fact that we just judge women more harshly based on what they say like that?
Let me answer that very succinctly. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because I've seen,
Hey,
you know,
she-
like Donald Trump could go out there and say, grab him by the L99 and get elected. I would have never thought in a million years he'd say something like that and win the election.
L-na-na, I love that.
You can't say the other word. And you know,
Wow,
compared to
that's
Elizabeth
one
Warren,
for the books.
who says something to Bloomberg, and all of a
Right.
sudden people are, oh, you can't say that. You can't say it
Well,
on
she
TV.
effectively
Come
took
on.
him down, though. I mean,
She did.
you
She
know.
destroyed him.
All right, we got a couple minutes left. I want to get to this Art Van, which has been a staple in this community. for
Shonda.
my
Shonda
entire
of the
life.
week.
I mean, I bought furniture at Art Van. That's basically where you went. They're liquidating all their stuff starting today. A lot of employees, like 3,000 employees in the
Yeah.
area, something like that, who are all of a sudden finding themselves out of work. I watched the news this morning, and the spokesperson for Art Van, God bless her, was out there doing her job still as the Titanic is going down.
Yeah.
And I felt bad at the same time, like this lady's going to be looking for a job tomorrow. And, she's
probably
still out
already
there
is.
doing the towing the company line on
She's a
this.
professional.
But if you have a
That's what you
deposit
do.
down
Good job.
on furniture, apparently, now you're a creditor, so you're going to have to wait till the court settlement when they liquidate all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
If you have an Art Van credit card, you're still on the hook for whatever you bought because the bank owns that note, not the company. But if you've got furniture that you're waiting on being delivered,
I've
not
always,
sure.
to be
Heads
honest,
I win,
I've always
tails you
wondered.
lose. Yeah.
I've always wondered how these furniture stores make money. I mean, they'll be like 2 years, no payment, no
tax.
Right.
no
Same as
interest,
cash.
no interest, and I always think like, how do they make money? And then the prices are sometimes pretty incredible for
the markup must be pretty high on
must
this
be
stuff.
incredibly high because
When
they'll
I
have like
was-
80% off, 50% off.
When I was
and-
very poor, I sat down on my bed one night and a spring popped through the mattress and poked me in the ass. So I thought, all right, I don't have any money, but I really need a new mattress. So I did a 90-day same as cash, right? The first thing you do when you get a 90-day, when you sign that contract is you open your mail the next day and there is, how would you like to convert that to like a 4-year payment plan,
Yeah.
for a $300 mattress? I mean, it's just, there's a million ways that you can just get a few pennies out of people here,
Well,
there.
I
and
know the other way. I know somebody in the furniture business where they made a lot of money off people making down payments and never coming back for
Yeah.
their furniture.
Huh.
And so that was
They break
like
up with
free money.
the marriage
Yeah.
breaks up, and that's the end of
Yeah,
it.
Well,
or people
it's-
put down 200 and they say, you know what, I don't have the other 800 or I don't need it now, and they just.
But anytime you
it.
see a venture capital firm come in and buy your company, watch
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Watch out.
In a couple of weeks, it's going
My-
to be a program for Universal Furniture now.
My friends in the newspaper business know the truth of that statement.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got to wrap it up. Al, we didn't get your schmuck of the week.
My schmuck of the week, I'd have to go with the CNBC guy. I think
Rick
he's-
Santelli.
Yeah.
I
Two votes.
think he's
Mine is the guy that got caught who's being recently prosecuted for like licking all the stuff and then putting it back in the store. Like he would lick the milk or like lick the fruit and then put it back on the shelf. That guy is now being prosecuted. That's my schmuck of the week.
All right. Well,
God.
gross
I didn't hear
schmuck of the
about
week.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the schmuck.
Hey, before we wrap up, I want to tell everybody to check out DeadlineDetroit.com. There's some great content up there right now. We've got a great story from Violet taking a look at tax credits in the city. And I know that doesn't sound like it's something that's that exciting, but it's really, really important stuff. She worked her butt off on it, and it's some really, really good research that nobody else has. It's a story that we broke here at Deadline Detroit, and the kind of stuff that you get all the time here. Good analysis of the things that are going on, and also you're kept up to date on all the latest news. Hopefully you're entertained with shows like this one, shows like 30 Black with Coleman Young. Download the podcast there. It's fresh.
I subscribed.
The Zip. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
The Zip is out there every week. And also, of course, we've got Detroit Digest.
Detroit Digest, we have a thing coming out this weekend on a vegan fried chicken sandwich, which we actually were able to sample. They brought some back
Was
to the
it
office.
good?
It was good. It was
Street
very
beat.
good.
Fried chicken
Yeah, it
sandwich.
was
Wow.
it was impressive.
There
It
you
was
go.
so-
See?
sort of a tofu base in it, and it was actually legitimate. I
We
mean,
have given
it
a
good?
lot of love to Street Beat over the years because that's the
Yeah.
ones that I wrote about them last year.
Right.
Nice ladies.
Before we got sidetracked
to
here,
them.
I was going to say, if you appreciate this kind of work, check out our membership section on our website at deadlinedetroit.com. $3 a month is the
$3.
basic membership. You can do more if you like, but help keep this going and support independent quality journalism in your community because it is becoming harder to find. Thanks to Michael Lucido for engineering the broadcast today.
not to be confused with the other Lucido.
That's true, although
No
there is a
relation.
distant relation there,
Distant
actually.
relation.
Thanks to Techtown Detroit and Samaritas for sponsoring this program. Thanks to my guests, Alan Lengel and Nancy Derringer from Deadline Detroit. And, of course, to Coleman Young. Thank you for being here, sir. We appreciate it
Always
very
a pleasure.
much.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for watching. Have a good weekend, and we'll be back next week doing this again. Tell your friends, subscribe, all that good stuff. It all means a lot. Alan, take us out.
And drive home safely.
The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey, the Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.